Thank you, everybody, for joining us here at Hemostemix's channel. We have a very special guest for you guys today as we sit here with Howie Lindeman, multi-award winning producer and engineer, and a patient that had received ACP-01. So, Howie, I want to dive into your story, but first off, how are you doing today?
I'm actually doing great. And I always start off when I get asked that question about how I'm doing, and it naturally at this time in my life relates back to health
Mhm.
and what I had done that did in fact change my life for the better.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a great way to kick off. So then talk to me about how you wound up on this path where you received this treatment. What was causing the need to receive it? What were you going through?
Okay. If we want to, in essence, if we, and I always relate to this, I use it as a tape machine. If we rewind my life, we go all the way back to when I was living on Maui in 1989. I had a heart attack and I was only 39 years old and literally had no idea that I needed it, or not needed a heart attack, but was going to have one. I wasn't sick. As far as I was concerned, I was in the best health that I had ever been in, because at that point I had gotten out of the music business for a short amount of time, and I was working at various dive stores and owned a partnership in a dive store over in Kauai. So I was in the water all day long, hauling tanks and diving and teaching, which I am still an instructor.
Mhm.
Um, and all of a sudden, one afternoon, I was watching a bunch of friends play volleyball down on the beach, and I woke up in the hospital.
Mm.
Didn't even know that I had passed out. And sure enough, I had a heart attack and I received a stent. Went on with life. If we want to rewind the tape even further, my grandfather and my father died of the same thing, which is coronary heart disease. So that plus the lifestyle that I was leading,
Mhm.
not necessarily in Hawaii, but in the music industry, of never sleeping, eating terrible food, in studios and on the road, helped gain to that. And I always joked with various doctors, I wonder if all of the drugs that I did in my life, especially recreational drugs, had anything to do with it. And they said, well, the condition of your heart, et cetera, and the condition of your body basically says, no, you inherited this, plus bad diet, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And after that, I had moved back to the mainland and moved back to Naples, Florida. And living in Naples, Florida, I had gotten sick again. And that's where I met my doctor there for the treatment. And if I'm allowed to say him by name, yeah, Dr. Zanos Grekos, who was the one who performed the stem cell therapy off US soil. And I'll get to that as we go. But I was in the hospital in Naples, basically facing open heart surgery, which all I wanted to know was, what are all the tools from Home Depot going to be used for? And I didn't want to undergo this type of surgery. So naturally it was scaring the crap out of me.
Yeah.
And that's when and Dr. Grekos was part of the team. And we ended up talking, and I decided not to have the surgery. And
Mhm.
he and I basically talked, and he said, listen, we'll talk at my office. And I was, okay, about what? He says, we'll talk at the office. So now that I was back into the recovery area, getting, you know, undone, and knowing I was not going to have the surgery since I turned it down, and we talked, and he said, there's a lot of things you know about me and a lot of things you don't know about me. And one of the things you don't know about me is that I am one of the leaders in regard to adult stem cell therapy. And again, I had no idea what it was. So
Mhm.
we talked. What are the procedures? How does it work? What's going to happen? And then the important part of the conversation was, because of, I guess, how the AMA, or however we want to look at the country, the medical association, et cetera, it's not allowed on U.S. soil
Right.
because
Yeah.
A, B, C, D, and E, and F. And he said, well, we do that at my location in the Dominican Republic. And my attitude was like, okay, so X amount of time and X amount of tests. And he said, everything came back and you are a candidate. And we flew down to the DR, got ready, which was really nothing. And the only thing I can say about the hospital, the facility was immaculate. The people were absolutely wonderful. And we basically got started. It was a little bit frightening going into something I had no idea what it was, but I'm
Naturally.
all for something different.
Mhm.
I know, I guess one thing did happen, and we kind of laugh at it because of my attitude and my answer and the condition that my heart was in. During the procedure, my heart stopped for a moment and I flatlined. And of course, brought me back, and Xanos himself said, I had a hard time bringing you back. I don't think you wanted to come back. And I went, yeah, it's good because I wouldn't have to pay tax, so I'm okay with it. and and he said, the amazing thing was, we're laughing at you because of what you said. And I went, what do you mean what I said? He said, the first thing you said when your eyes opened was you looked at me and you went far out. And and, and it was. And at that point, the procedure continued. And I guess the easiest way to say it was a success. And whatever it needed to do started to work. Fast forward the tape or rewind the tape and say, I started to feel different really, really fast. And I've explained this to people before. It almost felt like somebody had put a fan in front of my face and was blowing cool air at me. It was almost like I was able to breathe better. Even though my breathing wasn't affected before, I felt different. And now, when I say let's fast forward the tape or fast forward the years, which would be 15, I just started feeling better and better and better. And he did all the tests that were required periodically. And I did just that, got better and better and better. I grew collateral arteries that were immaculate. They kept me going for 15 years, which is basically now. I've spoken to many, 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 many people, and I said, if you're in doubt or you can, whether it be financially or mentally or physically, do it. The worst thing in the world that can happen is it doesn't work and then you have surgery. But definitely do this, spread the word, because regardless of how associations or countries feel about it, I'm a first-hand receiver, and I can look you in the face and go, I'm still here because it works.
Yeah. Wow, that is a crazy story. So I
Yeah,
guess from before to after you described, I like the way you described it as feeling you had a like wind blowing in your face, kind of a new
right,
lease on things there.
right.
Is there any other ways you describe it, like before you felt like this and then after you felt like this, so to speak?
Let's erase that in regard to the speaking thing. I didn't know I was as sick as I was. I
Mhm.
didn't know prior to being put into the hospital in Florida that anything was wrong. I was basically tired all the time, had no energy. And 90% of the time, I would blame that on the music industry because my days were an average, 18, 20-hour days
Yeah.
every single day. And diet was terrible. So I thought, yeah, this is just who I am and how I felt until they had the uninvited situation of, oh, you're in the hospital now and we need to take a look and this is what's wrong. And that's when I met Xanos. And I'm glad I did because they didn't have to cut me open at that time.
Mhm.
And I went through this procedure. And the easiest way to say it is, yeah, it changed my life. I wouldn't be here if I didn't have it done. Went on to do some other things outside of adult stem cell therapy, but still in regard to stem cells. And that was PCP therapy, which is for joint related things. And he did both of my knees and my lower back. And I got right back on a motorcycle. I mean, that's how fast and that's how different I felt from the use of my own stem cells, not someone else's, not a cadaver, not an embryo. They were mine. In essence, that terminology of adult stem cell therapy, when we use the word adult, that means they came from me and my body is not going to reject them.
Mhm.
And my body didn't for 15 years. I was strong, doing great, had no complaints. And as we discussed lightly before, up until recently, which recently being June that just passed,
Mhm.
and I'm living up in North Carolina now because I lost my home in Hurricane Irma in Naples, Florida.
Mm.
And I basically lost everything and had an opportunity to move up here to North Carolina, which also separated me from the direct contact with Dr. Grecos. And he continued, but now I'm all the way up here. So things progressed with life and found myself not feeling so great again.
Mhm.
And went to my doctor per insurance and my carrier, insurance carrier. And they said, well, let's take a look. Let's go in and take a look. And oh, let's do another test and let's do another test. And they did just that and put me into emergency open heart surgery June 1st. They said the heart itself was in great shape except for the lower area of the heart, which is where I had my original heart attack. And
Mhm.
they said, yes, you've had lots of collateral artery growth because of the stem cells, because of the adult stem cells. But your body, and I'm 71 years old now, which I keep a secret, but um, it progressed over the 5 years of not being able to see him. And then they did, bypass surgery in June, and I'm feeling great again. I wish I could say, yeah, I had the opportunity to go back to the DR and back to Dr. Grecos, but one, financially, I couldn't.
Mhm.
And two, I'm living up here now. So it kind of sort of dislocated us from the face to face situation.
Wow, Howie, that's an amazing story. And I guess I'll end it on one last question.
Sure.
Do you think this will be the future or should be the future? I mean, obviously in the current iteration of it, it's hard for people to receive this treatment, but just give me your opinions and thoughts on it. Is that this something should be rolled out?
All right. So you just said something real important. You used some keywords: should be, etc., etc. My attitude, it must be. If we as a society, they as a medical society, they as the insurance society continue to not allow this, they're going wrong, because we do have a way of healing things. One in particular being the heart, in regard to what happened with me and what I had done. Yes, 100% without any doubt, it should be allowed. And people, if they can afford it, and I've said to people, gee, don't buy a car, get yourself fixed.
Fair,
And
yeah.
it should be allowed 100% on US soil. And from what I've understood, but I'm not sure, is that now the only thing that is not allowed on US soil in regard to adult stem cell therapy or stem cell therapy, period, is the cultivation of those cells. So they're still forcing people to go offshore, which to me is wrong, because we have a situation here that heals people, keeps people alive, and gives you another chance at life without what I call, and again, I can say it firsthand, the horrendous surgery that you have to go under when it comes to heart surgery. The surgery itself was easy because I didn't remember it, but the healing process, I don't wish that on anybody.
Well said. Well, Howie, listen, thank you for coming on and thank you for sharing your story. It was wonderful hearing it. And I hope anyone listening, if they have any questions, not be afraid to drop them below. We'll happily answer them. But for
Great.
now, Howie, thank you so much again for your time and please have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Michael, so much. And anything I can help with, don't hesitate. Pick up the phone, pick up an email. You holler at me 24/7. And I've said that to patients of the doctors. Don't hesitate, because I'm here because of it, and I can talk about it, and I'm free to talk about it and want to.